Welcome back to another edition of Young Climber. Thank you once again for choosing us this Tuesday. We are more than delighted to be joining you or you joining us, whichever one it is. But I am so excited for today because I am talking to someone who is a powerhouse. You know, she just beams good energy. I'm talking about none other than problem solver and creative director. No stranger to me, but you get to learn all about her today. It is, of course, Siphilele Magagula joining us, you know, to talk about her life as a creative director and problem solver. Welcome to Young Climber.
Thanks for having me, Bello.
Just to start off with, you know, I always start off with people's upbringings because those are the things that influence the decisions that we make. Can you talk about your life and your education and how it influenced your creativity?
Alrighty, so I grew up here in Mbabane, in Mangoneni. I lived with my my parents, and my brother, and we were really from humble beginnings. But people who know me now would be like, really?
Humble? I'm joking.
But yeah, so I grew up in Mbabane, went to school in Sfunzani. I think when I was around 8, I always used to say to my parents, like, I don't feel like this is my true country. I felt like America was my true country. And I was always the kind of person who questioned everything. And from that questioning, I guess that's how I got into the careers that I got into. But long story short, I forced my parents to take me to Waterford, although they couldn't afford it because all my friends from Sfunzani were going there. They found the means to to be able to get loans and whatever needed to happen to get me to go there, and I got a partial scholarship. And I went to Waterford, and then from Waterford I moved to the US, which I thought was my true country, but I learned that it wasn't.
And now let's talk about your time in the US and how it influenced your career choice, and of course, you know, initially, which is fashion design. Let's talk about that time. Did you find yourself there?
So, as I said, I've always questioned everything, and which is what led me into the arts. I always knew how to draw. I did art in IB, and then when I was going to study in the US, I had to figure out what was I going to study. And fashion design is what I wanted to do. I loved style, I loved clothes. I used to take my dad's cuts off from his jeans because he was short and make doll clothes. But my mom was like, fashion design, who do you know in this country who's making money from that? Try something else. And at the time we had built our home in Eswatini that we moved to, and I watched that process from the floor plans all the way through, and I thought, architecture changes lives. It changed how we live, how we relate as a family. Maybe that's something I should study. So I went to study interior architecture because architecture was more about the space, the building within the space, but interior architecture is about how the people in the space are influenced by it. So that's what influenced my decision to go study interior architecture.
And now, how has, you know, that guidance from your mother influenced the person that you've become? Because maybe you could have been a fashion designer, you know, you could have been a tailor, but the mindset was changed. Maybe she was like, you know how they are, but how has all of that shaped the person that you are? Do you feel like you went into the right path?
So, as every teenage girl, I never agreed with anything my mother said. But in hindsight, I understand her positioning. She was trying to protect me and secure my future and help me do something that would give me a sustainable career. And she kind of had no parents herself. So she's always been a strong-willed person, and she has taught me to always work towards the things that I want and work hard for them. But she's also taught me resilience. And I think in hindsight, going into the architecture realm was the best decision for me because I learned design as a whole and how to influence space, but also decisions. Design thinking has been part of everything that I do. So yeah, and also the fashion design, it's still gonna come. I'm very much about, I wanna die empty. So I wanna do all the things that I would love to do, that I'm capable of doing and gifted to do. And so it's not over yet.
It's definitely not over. You're someone that moved from the US, the Netherlands, you assumed so many positions in these two spaces. Can we talk about the cultural differences and how the difference of, being in a whole different country, how did it change your perspective into your work, and how did it influence your work?
So yeah, in the Netherlands I worked remotely while I was in Eswatini. But in the US, I lived for about 7 years. From Florida, I moved to New York, and I lived there in New York for 3 years. And I think that's where I found myself. As someone who always questioned everything, New York was like a great sponge for all things. Anything that you like, I always say it has something for everyone. And I think how it influenced me, it showed me what's possible. And they always say, like that song by Alicia Keys, if you make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
Because it's like a melting pot of all disciplines, all kinds of people who are doing things that are unimaginable. So when I came back home, I had already been exposed to so much, and I have this gift of ideas. And I find Eswatini just to be a blank canvas for all things, because a lot of things haven't been innovated here. So that mindset of like, you can make anything possible, and kind of dispel the myth of where you come from matters, and it influences or diminishes your possibilities. Because I was like, even me from Eswatini, in this little country, I can do a lot.
Yeah. And when you came back, firstly, we'll talk about what influenced your decision to come back to the Kingdom of Eswatini, where you assumed the position of cultural coordinator for Alliance. What are some of the cultural solutions that you're bringing? Global solutions, of course, because now you've inherited this new information, better information, I could say. And how are you injecting it into our lovely kingdom?
I think the way that I've been trying to do is changing how we think and how we see things. From the projects that I've done as a cultural coordinator at Alliance, helping with managing how that space is run in the office organization system as a whole. I'm a systems person. I really like to figure out patterns and foreshadow what is possible. Yeah. And I like to create future-proof solutions. So from branding, where I work with clients, I try to help them understand who they are, who their audience is, and what the audience needs, and preempt those things so that they have a relationship that works. Instead of, these are people I'm selling to, these are humans that have feelings and emotions and habits, and how do we facilitate their existence? So all of my global thinking has taught me about being a step ahead and how to learn from patterns and kind of future-proof solutions.
But I'm pretty sure that transitioning back to, when you've absorbed a whole different culture and a lifestyle, transitioning back to your roots may have been a bit of a challenge. And can we talk about some of the challenges that you faced? And of course, trying to teach people new stuff, like here it is better, but they're just like,
right.
What are you saying?
I think I had a lot of challenges, but personally, coming home was not, this was not my destination. I'm coming to leave. I came home to apply for grad school because I wanted to do a multidisciplinary course, master's course about how to design for better mental and physical health at a broader scale, more like town planning and things like that. I came home, left New York because I didn't want to just be there for the sake of being. I wanted to progress. I came home, applied for all the schools, got into all of them from the UK to the US. Yeah. Some really prestigious places that I'm sort of still in contact with some of them. But I didn't get the funding for any of them. I went to a vulnerable space where I did a GoFundMe. Asking for help is not something I'm really good at. And people did donate, but it wasn't enough to get to where I needed to go. Yeah. So I put that money in investments, which is still brewing for something that is related to what I wanted to study. So yeah, that led me into a depression. I think I was depressed for a whole year. Some days I couldn't get out of bed, while still working remotely with this company in the Netherlands. And then I got sick. And after getting sick, I couldn't eat a lot of things, and I had to figure out how to make bread, because I couldn't have wheat, I couldn't have dairy, I couldn't have anything. So yeah, it was a challenge. I had to change my entire way of living after coming home.
But before we cry, you know, you did become a better person. In 2019, you founded Better Bakes, where you were exploring the world of the culinary arts. What process of starting your first business, and what was the process of starting the business, and what did you learn from it?
Right. Actually, starting a business was never part of my plans.
Yeah.
I've always just saw myself as a designer and a problem solver, and you know, doing the problem solving in different ends. I still don't see myself as a culinary expert.
Yeah.
As I said, I had this illness where I couldn't eat a lot of things, and I was gifted to be able to do a few things in the kitchen. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can make bread. Let me see if I can make all the things that, you know, I used to, and have a similar quality of life that I had. And my mother's diabetic, so she can't have sugars and all these kind of things. So then I started to make these things for myself, and after doing so, I was like, maybe there's other people out there who have the same problem. So I took my wares and went to a farmer's market, and it was a ripple effect from there. And then we now had the first inclusive food or baking business in the country. At the time, there was gluten-free was not known when I started experimenting in 2018. And then, now you can go into stores and find gluten-free stuff. And I still get really good, like a lot of the contacts and networks I created were through Better Bakes.
I love that story so much. I wish we could, you know, go deeper into it. But also in 2019, you were, you know, you got the advantage of being included in a program at the Royal Science and Technology Park. Can you talk about the incubator program and, you know, how it's benefited your life and how you got into it?
Sure. I think because I had never done a business before, and I had never pursued a culinary business. And I think I also had a lot of self-doubt as a young person at the time. I thought I needed to do a lot of things to qualify me to be in the position that I was. So I applied to quite a few incubators, and I got into the RSTP one. The program had an open call. You send in your application, you pitch to a panel. That was my first time pitching. And I think I was so personable enough that I grabbed the hearts of some of the people in the room, although I hadn't actually made it through to the final. They met me later on to say, you know, we like this and this, there's some areas of improvement, but would like to offer you a place anyway. So I was offered a space, and from there I think the best thing I got out of it was the network of other local entrepreneurs who were trying to change the status quo. And that's how I met Melly and Caesar of Antidote.
Of course, when we return, you did touch on Antidote. We will be talking about the Antidote Culture Foundation, which you're now very much a part of, but that is only after the break. We have returned, and speaking to us today is, of course, Siphilele Magagula, better known to me as Sips. We're still talking about your many assumed roles in the creative industry, and now being back in the kingdom of Eswatini. You have, which has led you to be the co-founder of Antidote Culture Foundation. Let's talk about your position there. How do you even get there? How do you meet Melly? What happens?
So while at RSTP doing the program, Antidote Music was also one of the companies that had applied and was part of the cohort of that year. So I met Caesar first, and he introduced me to Melly. And they told me what they do, and I've always been a lover of music, but while I was in the US, and people used to ask, because when you're outside of the country, you're ambassador for the country, and as someone who never felt like a part of this place, it was really difficult for me to even talk about Swaziland, and they always used to ask, tell us about Swazi music, and I couldn't. But for the first time after meeting Caesar and Melly, I was introduced to a whole world of Eswatini music at a really high standard. And at the time, I had also applied, as I said, I was applying to a lot of things. I had also applied for the Tony Elamelu Entrepreneurship program. which Meli and Caesar had applied to as well. So that created a bond for us because we had to do business plans and figure out what the future of our businesses were. And in conversations, because we're all in different creative pursuits, we looked at the position and the climate for creatives in the country, and we saw the gaps. And as problem solvers, we're like, maybe instead of working in silos, let's unite and work on something that can help as an answer to the issues that the country is facing in the creative sector. Because it's a very informal sector at the moment. So you're like, what can we do to formalize it, build a capacity, and stake our claim as a serious creative industry in the African continent. So we started Antidote Culture in 2022.
And it sounds like a solution-based foundation. What are some of the success stories that you can share with us, from Antidote Culture? Because we know of some, but what are some of the ones that you can share, being a part of it,
right,
that have changed the creative industry in Eswatini?
It's actually been quite surreal because we've only been in existence since 2022. So in the 2 years, we were able to launch a music conference that was tackling quite pertinent issues that are still being discussed at places like the Bushfire Roundtable, the position of women in the value chain. We were able to secure in our second year about 60,000 euros towards capacity building program, which was the Vugo Sound Lab, where we had 24 participants from different parts of the country. We got them we built a studio for them to be able to use state-of-the-art equipment that gave them access without having to have any barrier to pursue their interests. We were able to secure facilitators from around the world to be able to do trainings, 11 master classes that they've learned about, like formalizing their business. And then one of the ones that I hold dear right now is the space that we're in right now. We were able to partner with Yebo Art Gallery to create a platform for creatives called Yini Logo. And we called it Yini Logo. Actually, it was named by Kulegane Msweli because oftentimes people who are not in the creative sector look at art or creative pursuits and be like, Yin Logo. They don't understand it. So now we have a hub for creatives to create, to collaborate, and to showcase and make some sort of a living out of the space.
We'll talk about the space and how some of our young people can come and enjoy the space for free currently. But you're also a brand consultant and a graphic designer for small businesses. Can you talk about that hat that you wear and how you go about balancing out all of these different roles?
Problem solving has led me all sorts of places. So when I had first moved home, I did a few design jobs here and there, renovations, nothing hectic. And then also I had some friends who had started small businesses and needed logos. But I have a problem of, I don't want to I see one problem and I see the others as well. So I want to tackle them all. And one thing I noticed after coming home was a lot of businesses will stick a logo on and think that the job is done. They didn't think about who they are, what do they represent, and how are they sharing that with their audiences? How do they attract their audiences? So through my design thinking, I was helping them to figure out their brand voice, their identity, the future, how are they working towards that? In their daily actions, what are they doing to promote that brand? So and how do I juggle? I don't.
You just do what you can when you
It's a constant battle of prioritizing. Sometimes that comes at the cost of your life, your relationships. But for example, running a brand agency, an NGO, and a brand consultancy, an NGO, and running a space like this is a lot of work, and running Batabakes as well. So sometimes, some seasons, some things have to take less priority, and some things have to take higher priority. And because of the person that I am and the name that I have, Live For Us, things like my personal things take a back seat, and things that will help a larger group of people take the higher seat. Like right now, the cultural practitioner hat is the most prominent one that I wear.
And you know, you have been in this space for quite a while now, establishing the foundation in the year 2022. What are some of the pressing needs that you've seen, especially in the Kingdom of Eswatini, when it comes to the creative landscape, and how do you think as young people, because we can't wait for, you know, solutions to be made, how do you think as young people we can come up with solutions to overcome these particular problems?
Resources has always been a problem, which is why we had built the studio that we built, which is why we have uni. But oftentimes we focus on what we don't have. Yeah. And I think that is a barrier. So to young people trying to pursue a creative career, I think the most important thing is to be resourceful. Think about what is it that is in your possession and how can you utilize it. And resources can be people as well.
Yes.
It doesn't always have to be money. Not having money is not the biggest of problems. Access is always a problem. Yeah. So resources, access, which is access to platforms, access to markets, access to information. We live in an information euphoria with the internet, but I feel like we're not, what's the word? We're not taking advantage of that. And which is why at uni, we offer internet for free. Come and use this wild world web. And so yeah, I think the biggest challenges are resources, information, platforms and markets. We're such a small country. It's really hard to figure out how to penetrate other markets. So that's some things that we work towards.
Yeah, and I love that you speak about, or you mentioned the word free, which leads to the idea of funding. How do you think we can overcome or, you know, talk to the issue of funding in the Kingdom of Eswatini, especially when it comes to the creative space and the creative industry? Because running a space like Yini Logo, you're offering the space to people for free, but there's maintenance and Wi-Fi is not necessarily free. You have to be paying for it every single month. How can people tap into the idea of funding, or how can companies contribute to the creative industry through funding?
That's a good question, because one of the challenges that we have is that we're seen as like, okay, that's the creative industry, but the creative industry kind of influences every other industry. If you're a phone company, you need someone to help you market that. What do you need to market that? You need a graphic designer, you need a photographer, you need a videographer, you need designers. Those are all people that are in the creative sector that need to be empowered. So for the creative sector to thrive, we need all stakeholders to be involved. We need municipality, we need corporates, we need government. So we all need to be seen as custodians and champions of the creative industry. So if there's brands out there that want to showcase the Yini logo, provide us funding to keep the lights on and provide more resources for creatives to be able to thrive, we're here, we're open.
Yes.
Right here in Bavane, in the center. We would love to collaborate. You know, it is, as you say, it is not easy to keep the space open, but our mandate is always to have offerings that are free. We make it as cheap and cheerful as possible for creatives to rent the space for their showcases, you know, and we never want to compromise on that. We want people to have free access to the internet. We want people to have access to networks. We want people to have access to a platform without having to compromise themselves. You know, young people tend to, you know, turn to different ways to get money. We want them to not have to go to those lengths for the things that they want to pursue. So help us if you can.
And just as, you know, parting words, what advice would you give to young people aspiring to making a difference through creative and social entrepreneurship?
It's really tricky to pursue a creative career. I always commend young people for doing so. But I would say do some research. Look into there's many ways to kill a cat, as they say. okay, you can draw, you can paint. What are other ways that that skill can make you money? Because yes, you can draw and you can come and have an exhibition here at uni, but the economic indicators are showing that people are not spending as much money on art. As we created a report recently that was in the paper that showed that. So because people are not spending money on traditional art, what other ways can you use your art? Can you help designers create patterns? You know, can you help businesses, you know, do murals for their businesses? Can you help organizations facilitate wellness trainings? What is it else that is in your wheelhouse that you can use? And yeah, be resourceful. And it's because it's not an easy road, you have to know more than that one trade. We're in a world that's ever evolving. You need to be curious. I think curiosity is the biggest gift. You need to be curious, which allows you to want to access information, knock on doors. Yeah, curiosity, resilience. It's gonna be a tough road, and you need to be prepared for that. And I think also what we struggle with as creatives is opening up. People want to keep their creativity to themselves. They don't want to jinx things. But if you don't share it with the world and you don't make it a habit of like getting yourself out there, you will never know where you could have gone. I'm very daring. I've entered so many industries at this point. And I think part of that is that I'm willing to try and I'm willing to fail. Failure is an easy part of, it's a part of life, you can't avoid it. But it teaches you how to improve for the next thing. So yeah, be open, be resourceful, research, and be a sponge, be curious. You can also be a hot mess and achieve things. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to wait for things to be perfect to pursue them. Just start, and you just learn as you go. And that's how I've done it.
A big thank you to you, Siphilele, for joining us today. We do hope that, you know, Antidote Culture Foundation will take the creative industry of Eswatini to the world, because, you know, you guys have been working tirelessly to provide for creatives in the kingdom. Big thank you once again.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Alrighty, that was Siphilele. Please do check out all our other episodes. They are available on our YouTube channel, which is of course Eswatini TV. But from myself, Tabelo Dlamini, I do have to love and leave you until next week Tuesday, 6:30, where I'll be seeing you with another inspirational story. But for tonight, it is good night.